Welcome to the Purposeful MD podcast. As a physician, you've sacrificed so much of your life for other people, your patients, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. What would it feel like to spend time doing what you enjoy and to live without guilt? I'm your host, Dr. Laura Sutton, a family physician, certified coach, and business owner. If you're a medical professional on a journey towards your most purposeful life, a life with more time and energy, and ultimately more joy, then this is the podcast for you. Welcome to this episode of the Purposeful MD podcast, and I'd like to start the episode with a story. So many of you know that I'm a runner. I've been running for over 10 years, and at the beginning of the pandemic, I had some running injuries. I had some challenges. And since running is such an outlet for me, such a stress relief, it was really troubling and really challenging. So I decided to go ahead and get some treatment. I sought out an orthopedic surgeon. And so I saw the orthopedic surgeon. I remember very specifically, it was January 2021. And they ordered an MRI. I went for my follow-up visit. I was sitting on the table going over the results with him. And one of the options for my knee challenges was surgery. And, he's an orthopedic surgeon. So a lot of times one of the options is surgery. And I remember sitting there on the exam table and looking at my orthopedic surgeon, who was very nice, gave me lots of time to weigh my options, and thinking to myself, well, at least if I have surgery, I'll have a few days off to rest. And that sounds nice. A couple days in the hospital sounds nice. Yeah, I think back to that now and I think, really? A couple days in the hospital seem nice? At the height of COVID, January 2021. Now, granted, I'd just gotten my second vaccine. I was feeling a little bit invincible. But taking time off to be in the hospital sounded nice. I look back and I realize how exhausted I was. I was so in need of rest. My body so desperately needed any kind of relief that I felt I needed to have surgery and be in the hospital for a few days to give myself permission to rest and to take a few days off. It was like I could only rest if I had a really valid reason, and only if I finished my chores first. I remember that so clearly, and I wish I could say that that moment was a turning point for me and that I prioritized rest from that day on. But I stayed stuck in the busyness and the overwhelm. And I can see the message now as I look back on it. I can appreciate that message in hindsight. But after that orthopedic surgery visit, I opted not to have surgery. I opted to go to physical therapy. I still continued to work myself beyond exhaustion for several months. I was participating in a fundraising campaign for a charity that is near and dear to my heart, a charity that I'm still very, very active in. I was planning a wedding. I was actually replanning a wedding because our original wedding date was March 21st of 2020. So our wedding date had been put off. Our wedding celebration had been put off several times. So I was planning it for like the fourth time. I was in the process of becoming a coach, and I was dealing with COVID like much of the world, reeling from the pandemic. Our organization was sponsoring and organizing and staffing a mass vaccination site, actually 3 mass vaccination sites in my city. And we were doing everything we could to vaccinate as many people in our town as we could. And I was also grieving my father, who had passed away in August of 2020. So all of this is going on at the same time. And only really now, when I think back to everything that I was dealing with at the time, does the gravity and the overwhelm of that time really sink in. That go, go, go really did manifest later as physical and mental health challenges. I didn't see it at the time. I didn't put the two together. But I can see it now that my body was catching up to this trauma and the stress of that time period. But I thought that my go, 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 my not resting was a sign of success. I thought, I've got too much on my plate. I can't stop now. I've got to keep the momentum going. And I thought I had to sign up for an elective surgical procedure to allow myself a few days off. I was mistaking my productivity for my self worth. I was defining myself in terms of what I can accomplish. And I now know that my worth is not defined by my productivity. That's so important. My worth is not defined by my productivity. Your worth is not defined by your productivity. You are worthy of rest no matter what. But our culture tries to teach us the opposite, right? We're so ingrained with this notion that productivity and what we accomplish are real measures of our worth and our value. And if you've ever spent time in another country, a lot of other countries value rest just as much as work. Many European countries value rest very highly and they build it into their day. And, the US, we are the only developed country that doesn't guarantee paid vacation, which is very unfortunate. And as physicians, we just amplify this mentality in the medical culture. So when I was training many years ago, I think it's gotten better now, but it was not uncommon to regularly work 36 hours. So you worked all day and all night and all day the following day. And we were expected to be awake and available at all times during that shift. And if we stayed up all night, then we were glorified and celebrated. I remember very clearly falling asleep in a lecture post call, and I was yelled at. I was chastised in front of my colleagues, in front of my classmates. So it was the kiss of death to fall asleep on a rotation post call. Outside of call, we were regularly expected to deny our own bodily needs. We put the needs of our colleagues and our patients in front of our own bodily needs. We skipped meals to see patients scrub into cases. And if we were scrubbed into a 9-hour case, there was no way we could ask for a break to use the restroom. We just couldn't attend to our physical needs. It was unheard of. This practice can't be good for patients either. How many of us would want to see a physician who's been awake for 36 hours? How many of us would want our family member cared for by a physician or a medical professional that's been awake for that long? We now know that being awake for that long has the same effect on our brain and our reaction time as being legally drunk. And we know of unfortunate incidents of patient harm occurring in scenarios where the medical team is not well rested. And these scenarios are really heartbreaking and they're completely preventable. Our bodies and our brains need rest. For us to function and to be at our best selves, we have to rest. So rest is going to look different for different people. So for me, rest absolutely can mean sleep. Rest can also be meditation, journaling, maybe reading a good book, taking a hot bath, spending time in nature, getting a massage, gentle yoga, stretching. Rest can mean just cuddling up on the couch with my dog. Rest can mean lying in a dark room with no stimulation. Sometimes that's just what we need. And the amount and the type of rest we need at different points in our lives will change. I remember I had major surgery a couple years ago, and I was really surprised and shocked at how much sleep I needed in the months following the procedure. My body was healing and I had to let it heal, even if it meant going to sleep at 8 p.m. every night, which is not my usual bedtime. Usually I'm asleep a little bit later than that, but I needed about 10 hours of sleep every night for several months after my surgery. Do you ever wonder why babies and small children need so much sleep? Their brains are learning so quickly. They're taking in so much information. Their brains just get tired. And when we're in a phase of personal and professional growth, we get tired quickly too. We're stretching our brains. You might find that we need more rest at other times. And that's completely normal. I want to tell you about one of my clients who was struggling in just about every aspect of her life, personally, professionally. She was really busy, full-time primary care clinician. And she just felt so behind on her charts and her patient messages. She had a husband and a son and really was frustrated that she wasn't spending time with them because she was catching up on her charts. She wasn't enjoying her patient interactions anymore, even though she loved the relationships with her patients. She was just dreading the administrative work. So she got easily frustrated at people. She was snapping at people around her, and that just wasn't like her. And she asked me for help to manage her stress. So I validated her feelings, definitely validated where she was at, honored that. And one of the first things I asked her was about her sleep. She said she'd been staying awake till midnight, 1 a.m. to work on charts, and then waking up at 5 o'clock to get ahead, is how she said it, in the morning. And on weekends, she'd let herself sleep in a little bit till 6 a.m., but that's not much. So really, I told her that the first step has to be to get that sleep. Her body's not going to be able to handle the stress unless she sleeps. And she's a physician. She knew intellectually she wasn't sleeping enough, but she was justifying it to herself and to me by saying that she had to catch up on work. We talked about how important sleep was. I reminded her of that, and that really nothing in her life was going to work smoothly or get any better unless she slept the way that she needed. So she resisted at first, but she eventually agreed with me, and we came up with a plan for her to get in bed by 10 p.m., ready for sleep. So that means not scrolling her phone, not watching TV, but ready for sleep at 10 p.m. So when we met for our next session, she mentioned that she implemented the plan and she was sleeping a lot better than she had previously. She was feeling more productive and less stressed and just so much more rested throughout the day. I had another physician client who was telling me about a weekend off that she had coming up, and she was so looking forward to it. Her family was going to be out of town. She was going to have the house to herself. She really just needed some downtime. So she was describing herself to me as an active relaxer. She said, I prefer to stay busy to recharge. That helps me to stay relaxed and stay focused. And so we talked about a different form of rest, that maybe her form of rest in that instance wasn't sleep. But then she did say that she tended not to rest until everything was in order. So I know that I have been in this situation before, and many of you probably have as well, feeling like you have to get everything done before you can go to sleep. So this physician client of mine was worried that she was going to be too overwhelmed by the disorganization in her house to be able to rest, to relax and recharge, which is what she really wanted and really needed. So by the end of the session, her goal was to hire somebody to clean the house so she could better utilize that time for herself. And she told me, and I quote, rest is medicine and it's okay to take care of myself. And I would say it's not only okay, but it's absolutely necessary. And it's just so often when life gets busy, when we're under stress, that sleep is one of the first things that we sacrifice. We think we can operate in a sleep deficit, but we know that this isn't the case. Maybe in the very short term, but not in the long term. We can't function in it unless we're sleeping well. And there might be periods, if you have a newborn or you're caring for somebody, where we just don't get the sleep that we need, but this really has to be temporary. We have to prioritize sleep in order to function and have optimal physical, emotional, and mental health. And then when we don't sleep, that's going to further compound any stress in our bodies. I know that when I'm sleeping well and resting, my life is just better and smoother and easier. And we can't fight it. We're human and we need rest. We don't earn it. We need it. We are human and we need rest. We are human and we need rest. We need periods of time that we spend just being and not doing. So think about what this looks like for you. What might be your preferred forms of rest? I mentioned meditation, journaling, getting a massage, taking a walk, maybe gentle stretching, gentle yoga. It's just been so much more obvious to me over the past few years how my lack of rest affects me. And when I am expending energy in different parts of my life, then I need more rest. So right now I have ramped up my physical activity. I've ramped up my training, my exercise routine because I'm training for a race. I'm also in a process of transition of leaving a job where I've spent the last 14 years of my life. And there are a lot of emotions that are coming up with that. And I will spend another podcast episode talking just about transitions because it's so important. It's been so much on my mind lately. But all this emotional energy, it takes energy, and I need to rest more from it. I'm also noticing the times when I have created busyness in my life, when I have created this sense of being busy just so I can avoid something or put off something. And I'm noticing and working with my coach areas where I'm manufacturing busyness, because if I can stay busy, I can put off that rest. I can put off noticing that maybe I've got some tough feelings I need to deal with. So overworking, numbing, all these ways are kind of manufacturing this busyness in our life. I have to ask myself, what's behind my need to be busy? What am I avoiding? Probably something difficult, maybe a difficult emotion that I'm just not feeling like I'm ready to face. And then how did it become a sign of importance to be crazy busy all the time? How did that become something that we hold so dearly? And it's some sort of medal for ourselves that we're crazy busy. How did we get to that place? I don't think that that's somewhere that we really want to be. We want to be in a place where we're resting. And the next time I ask somebody, how is life for you? I hope they say I'm well rested. That's what I want to hear instead of I'm crazy busy. It's so interesting that when I stop to rest and take the rest that I need, what comes out of it is this beautiful space and this creativity and this knowing and this just amazing beauty that I didn't see before. And in the process of stopping to rest and shutting down this manufactured busyness and noticing it and actively, intentionally, purposefully stopping this busyness, I'm creating this beautiful life for myself as I'm transitioning and as I'm cutting away some of the things that don't serve me anymore. I'm creating this beautiful space for myself and this beautiful life for myself. And that's what I want for you too. That's why you're on this journey with me together, so we can create the lives we love without guilt. So I'd like for you to get into action. So grab a journal and a pen because I want you to write down a few things. So first, write down how many hours of sleep on average you've gotten over the past 14 days. If you have a tracker, makes it easy. Look on your tracker. If you need to, track for 14 days and then come back to this. Come back to this exercise. Then if your lifestyle allows, try to wake up naturally without an alarm, an electronic, human, or furry alarm for the next 2 weeks and notice how many hours of sleep you got on those nights. Now, if you're not able to, I understand that's not realistic for a lot of folks. I completely understand. But notice maybe on a weekend or a day where you don't have to set an alarm, or a day where you just feel exceptionally tired and you go to bed a little bit earlier than you might, just notice how much sleep that you would get on those nights. And that's about the amount of sleep that you need. Now, the average human needs 7 to 9 hours of sleep. That means some people are going to need more and some people are going to need less. But really, functioning on less than 6 to 7 hours of sleep for most people is just not healthy. So if you're getting less sleep than you need, then commit to optimizing your sleep. So in your journal, I want you to write down some things that you can do to create more restorative sleep for yourself. So some ideas might be shutting off screens an hour before bedtime. Don't stay in bed unless you're asleep or you're engaged in some intimate activities with your partner. The bed should be reserved for those two things. So if you can't sleep, get out of bed, do something else. Otherwise, the bed becomes linked to not being able to sleep and creates anxiety in and of itself. And then, of course, we all know about the effect that caffeine and alcohol can have on our system. So cutting back on those. Trying meditation or journaling before bed can really help put you in a relaxed state. And then get your family involved because everybody in the family probably needs more sleep too. Talk to them about any routines that need to change, whether that's meal times or curfew, TV, noise. because this is really, really important. This is not something that we can skimp on. And keep trying, keep practicing until you're feeling more rested. We also talked about other ways that are non sleep to get some rest. So write down what those might be for you, whether that's meditation, journaling, any sort of rest. What makes you feel recharged and fills up your cup? That's what I want you to practice every day because it's that important. It's been important for me, and I know it's important for you. Thank you so much for being on this journey with me for another episode of Purposeful MD. Please let me know if this was helpful for you. Feel free to email me at laura@thepurposefulmd.com. I would love to hear from you. Thank you for listening to the Purposeful MD podcast. If you like what you hear, please rate and review the show. Please also visit my website, www.thepurposefulmd.com, for free downloads or to discuss working with me as your coach.